So today I want to talk to you about an AC-3 decoder adapter unit which allows your Laserdisc, providing it's got an AC-3 output, to output an AC-3 signal, RF signal, and you need the adapter in order to get the signal, and this adapter then plugs into your amplifier. Of course, if you have an earlier amplifier with AC-3 input in it, which you'll find in early model Denons and Pioneer units, along with some others, you won't actually need this unit. But if you have a modern amplifier and you want to get into the arcane world of AC-3 Laserdiscs and have them sound supposedly as they should sound, then you need one of these. Now, this is an extra sort of bigger box than what we'd normally find, because there obviously are some units that all they do is AC-3 and that's it, and no other inputs around. You just plug in your Laserdisc into it and the output then goes into your amplifier and away you go. But this unit allows you to do a few extra things. It's obviously slightly out of date now because you don't really need DTS as such, because it's always built into modern amplifiers. And this Cambridge Audio V500 was a clone, I believe, of a Denon unit. I don't actually have the remote control, but I assume it does come with a remote control. So you've got a power button, an indicator for AC-3, which is the thing that you're actually after, input for coax, if you ever use that stuff, optical, you get 2 optical inputs, and 6-channel exterior in, and that's for something I'll show you in a minute. And it has AC-3 and it has DTS, and these are the things you can pick with little surround. You see it has sound as well. You can have pick your surround mode, channel EQ, and you can select just basically up and down on those. The reason why it has DTS on this audio is, again, when the early model Denon amplifiers came out, AVC A1 and their various £2,000 equivalents, the early Yamahas, didn't actually have DTS, and they were slightly caught out when DTS CDs came out, that you didn't actually have a 6-channel extra input. So if you did actually happen to have that Star Wars last release Laserdisc from Japan, which had 1 extra channel in the back which you could shove behind your sofa, you wouldn't be able to hear it unless you actually, with your early £2,000 Denon or Yamaha amplifier, you wouldn't actually have been able to hear it because you didn't have DTS. And so if you bought this unit or particular units like it, add-ons, or even then upgraded, then you'd get DTS and you'd be able to listen to the extra channel at the back. At the moment it's sitting on top of a 515 Pioneer that has a AC-3 output, but this doesn't have a digital output, so I can't show you that. So I'm just going to show you the rear end of this and show you what happens when it lights up. This is actually quite a good unit. I bought it second hand from somewhere years ago, and I had it recently. I was recently using it, and it does actually work quite well. I'm not sure where you'd find it. I think you'd probably find it on eBay now or floating around somewhere. It's not a bad unit actually, because you can do other things with it rather than just have an RF input and output. And I'll show you around the side in a second. Okay, around the back of this particular unit, these are extra out. This is an output to record out 6-channel external in. So if you had a SACD player of the time that needed analog inputs in order to play SACDs fully, then you'd get the back of the SACD player would have front and rear center outputs, and these would go into here, and then this external bit would then go into the back of your amplifier that would have these ports. So basically you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 wires, 14 cables going out the back. So you can see why HDMI came along and solved everybody's problems, thus making a lot of this stuff sort of out of date. Here is the AC-3 input. Here's some coaxial inputs, and here's mini disc. That's a good one, isn't it? We have optical in and optical out, and a non-captive cable, which is quite good. How I used to run this was I would have an optical in from the Laserdisc player, and then that would run into the optical. Then I'd take the optical out cable from here into the amplifier, and so the volume button on this, which I've never used, wouldn't actually work, because the volume would then be controlled by your amplifier. And I did have this working a few months ago, so I know that it all functions quite well. Here on the back of the Laserdisc player you have the RF AC-3 out, and with a cable here. That would plug into there, and the AC-3 goes in there. Now also on the back of the Laserdisc player you have a video out, which you need, obviously that goes into your TV, and you'd also, in some players which have an optical out, that would go into your amplifier or into this, which would provide the sound for your LDs that don't have AC-3, or you could use the audio out analog ports here for the same purpose. If you used an optical cable from this machine, well, if this machine actually had an optical cable, if you used the optical from a machine that had that, then you'd be able to play DTS laser discs. But at the moment, because this doesn't have an optical out, you can't actually play DTS laser discs, to the best of my knowledge. So in theory, if this was connected to a TV, you'd have one more cable here going off. Now in the size of the cable, you can go down a rabbit hole thinking about thickness of cable and whatever, but seeing a lot of these cables are quite cheap to buy, and you can probably find some nice X-Monster cables on eBay, you might as well go for the thickest ones that you can get, rather than some strands of bell wire or those little ones you come with Kenwood stack systems and whatever. But I suppose if you shut your eyes and keep quiet, you probably won't notice any difference whatsoever. So what I'm going to do now is put on a video and show you the lighting system, how this lights up, to show that you've got AC-3 coming through. So the film we're going to use is an AC-3 film, obviously. Lucky old us, we won't be able to hear or listen to Lethal Weapon 4, but it's got an AC-3 soundtrack at the bottom, and a good thing about AC-3 soundtracks, used to come with little trailers, which are really quite good, of a helicopter floating down. That was rather good. There was one about a temple, that came on quite a few discs, and the best one I thought was the Dolby Digital Train, which is on True Lies, but and a couple of others, but that's it. I haven't seen that on many other discs. So here's our 515 minus optical, but with an RF output, and here's our Cambridge Audio. See if you can find it on eBay. So we turn it on. And it comes up, defaults to Pro Logic. You can turn this off if you so wish. it thinks it's got a disc. Right. Have we got a disc in here? Yes, we have the disc. And it goes back to its default Pro Logic, and it's at the start, and we'll press play and it should come up with, well, you won't be able to see it, but it will come up with the AC-3 power. Here we go, which will be indicated here that we have the 5 channels. Dolby Digital, and up it lights to show you that it's a Dolby Digital and it's outputting Dolby Digital 2 from a coax into your amplifier. Okay, that's it. Rather a nice unit actually. You can probably do quite a lot with this. Volume, which won't work if it's plugged into an amplifier. You can select stereo, Dolby Digital, obviously stereo, Dolby Surround it'll do as well. But if it's got a Dolby Digital signal, that's about what you're going to get. So there you are, nice unit, a very nice unit. But if you can just find a bog standard RF adapter, which would come little square boxes from Sony, Yamaha, probably Denon as well, then you should just pick up one of these. But for the same price, if you run into one of these, it's a nice unit, quite heavy as well, quite solid. In fact, there's more weight in this than there is in this, which is an amazingly tinny sort of machine. Why they made this without an optical cable is beyond me. But if you're very good at soldering and watch some YouTube videos, you can probably put an optical cable into one of these. Thank you very much.